Charles and Dr. Hal. Relate to this.
Good evening. Welcome to another episode of Relate to This. I am. what's going on, Dr. Howe?
Hey, listen, man. Listen, for my people out there in the audience, I just got online and he gave me the questions on the lineup for today, and there's some doozies on there. So let's see how we get through this episode. That's what I'm laughing at.
Is your name is your name Dr. Howe? That's my question.
With I'm going to say this jokingly with DJ Truss and Dr. Howe. Yes, my name is Dr. Howe.
All right, then you're gonna be able to handle this. This is Relate to This.
Yes.
Jay Tross, and this is Dr. Howe, as in Siegfried, as in the great doctor. It's always a pleasure for us to come together, because that's what we do. We bring ourselves together onto this platform to not only express what we like to do, but also express what we think people are feeling. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
a lot
yeah.
of things happening in this world, a lot of unknowns, just a lot of things, man, on various. I mean, we're dealing just one aspect of life, but there is a lot happening out there, and so we just come on here now. If you came on here for your first time because you've been watching some other show, and you're like, "Ooh, they're on another show. They're gonna be funny." This is not about funny. This is This is no laughing matter, but you can check out Awkward Situations if you want a little laughter. We also run that show, Awkward Situations. Check that out. But no, this is we're gonna laugh regardless. We have,
Definitely.
it's just all part of who we are. It's in our DNA. So a lot of things are serious. Sometimes having a little laughter as part of it always lightens the crowd. And so I believe we ended last show, Dr. Howe, with the cliffhanger. I don't know if you remember that cliffhanger,
I sure don't.
but I think I do. And that cliffhanger was this question: how do you handle jealousy in your relationship?
Mm. Well, let me go ahead. Look, let me preface that by saying this. I have always spoken about the 3 C's. You have to find someone that you have good chemistry with, but not just physical chemistry like most people talk about. I'm talking about physical chemistry, emotional chemistry, mental chemistry, spiritual chemistry, all the chemistries you can think of. People normally just think about the sexual aspect of it, but I'm talking about all forms of chemistry. And then once you find that person that you connect with on that level, then you have to choose that person. So you have to look for the chemistry first, not just physical, all aspects of your being. Then you have to mentally choose that person. Once you mentally choose that person based on compatibility, then you have to commit to that person. So to me, the biggest thing that you have to deal with is your choice of partners. So if you choose someone that has a lot of jealousy issues, that's something that you got to work on internally. That's the first thing. Secondly, if you're the jealous one, that's also something that you have to work on, because jealousy is a form of insecurity. Now, if you're choosing someone who deliberately tries to trigger you on a jealousy level, that speaks volumes to your ability to pick someone that is good for you. You're picking toxic people. So how do you deal with someone who is jealous all the time, or how do you deal with yourself if you're jealous all the time? You got to work on those insecurities. If you have a partner that's insecure, you have to find ways to help them build their security. Maybe you're doing things that is causing them to be more insecure. Now, they still have to choose to be insecure, but if you're creating an environment where they are put at a disadvantage love wise, let's say you're flirtatious, let's say you don't come home early, let's say you're secretive, let's say that you have friends of the opposite sex that are a little too close with you, you're creating a situation that might enhance a person's jealousy triggers. So you have to work on that. Now, if your partner is jealous for no reason, then you have to find a way to reduce those insecurities by showing them why they should trust you. You have to create avenues and situations for them to trust you more. Does that make sense to you? Okay, and so jealousy, like I said, is an insecurity thing. But what is your role that you're playing in that? So that to me is the biggest thing. And if you are playing an active role in it, reduce those things that are triggering your partner, especially if you love them and you want to add value to them. You want them to relax. You want them to be able to reciprocate love to you. Because as long as they have jealousy and insecurities, they will not be able to love you the way that you need to be loved. They're going to be in survival mode versus loving mode.
That makes sense. That makes sense. That makes perfect sense, right? That makes perfect sense. But also to add on to what you're saying is, and I've seen these, I've witnessed it myself and kind of watched through the years that sometimes it has nothing to do with, the person. It's just you've had relationships in the past that has caused you to have that tendency to have that jealousness.
Mm-hmm.
I'm no doctor.
But that's why I said that if you're the one who's jealous, or
Right.
if you're causing someone to be triggered, that's
Right.
something that needs to be worked on internally,
Right.
because it comes from a place of insecurity.
Right.
Because a good relationship is one where we don't need each other, but we choose each other. We choose
Correct.
to be together. See, if you are just with me because you need me, then that creates codependent. Well, that creates dependency.
I think it was well said by the Atlanta DA when she said, "A man is not a plan."
That is true.
She said, "A man is not a plan," and I think she just said, "A man is." I could be just paraphrasing, could be taking a.
Mm-mm,
I know the first part. I think the second part may have been, "A man is, just a companion."
mm-hmm.
So a man is not a plan, is what she said. So that's along the lines of what you kind of said there. Okay, so thanks for that. That's the bonus question,
Mm-hmm.
bonus round. So let's jump into tonight's conversation that is themed around self, really self. These terms of self. The biggest hitting question that we're going to have tonight, Dr. Howe, and probably spend the most time on for our program tonight, or not. It depends on what direction we go with it. Is the questions, right? The questions that you should ask yourself before getting into a committed relationship. Now, for those listening and watching, when I brought this question up to Dr. Howe, he expressed the nature of how either deep or how tricky or how difficult, or it could be a lot of different directions. But from the outside looking in, I mean, 5 questions. I mean, what should I ask myself? Like, am I ready for this? Or, do I have enough money for this? So for me, it was more like, oh, this should be real easy. But I want to get it from the great professor's mind of, of 5 questions you should ask yourself before getting into a committed relationship.
All right, so let me think about this carefully. I was going to say this in the last question or in my comment to the last question. But I'm glad I saved it because it comes in perfect here. A relationship is a journey with two people going in the same direction, supposedly going in the same direction, and their ability to help each other out. So with that being the case, there's some questions you need to ask, because the first thing I said is you have to have chemistry, then you got to choose, and then you have to commit. So the first question that I would ask is, are we going in the same direction? Now, let me unpack that. Are our goals, dreams, and aspiration aligned? And if they're not aligned, are they similar enough that we can go down the same path and help each other, pour into each other, add value to each other, assist each other? Because everyone's going to experience ups and downs. Everyone's going to experience trials and tribulations. So do I have, or am I choosing someone that is going to be a good companion on that journey? That's the first question. Secondly, the next question that I would ask, and this probably should go first: am I a good person that you will want to take on your journey? Because a lot of times, and I've said this before, a lot of people go into relationships for selfish reasons. I like the way you look, you like the way I look, you like how much money I have, I like your body, whatever you might want from an individual. We go into relationships trying to take. And we often forget that there's a person on the other side that has dreams and aspirations also, and they also want to take. And so what am I providing to them? Because here's the fear that a lot of people have. I commit to this relationship and it falls apart. Now, there's some research out there that says this: there's no such thing as an ideal person, your perfect match. It's only a matter of how much both people are willing to put into making it work. And that is the commitment part. And that's why choosing the right person is so important, because you don't want a relationship leech or a relationship parasite. You want someone who's willing to put in time and energy and feed you like you're feeding them. So it's a reciprocal type relationship. So are you physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and whatever else ready for this relationship? And if not, what are the areas in my personality and in my life that I need to get ready? Because a lot of times we're looking for Miss Right or Mr. Right, but when we find them, we may not be theirs. So are we working at improving ourselves so that when we find the one that we consider to be perfect for us, that we're also perfect for them? So that's the second question. The third thing, what do I expect from this relationship? And is or are my expectations legitimate or realistic? Like you said, a man is not a plan. A husband is not a plan. A husband is a helpmeet. A husband is a person to help you along your life's journey. And so if I'm insecure and I want a pretty girl to just make me feel better about myself, is that relationship going to last? If I'm a woman and all I want is a husband and I don't care what he provides, or I want a rich husband but I don't care about his personality, I just want financial security, I don't care about the emotional connection or the mental connection or the spiritual connection, is that enough to keep a relationship going? And so, like I said, what are my expectations for the relationship? Am I expecting to stay home and he takes care of me? Or am I expecting to finish my education and go get my master's, PhD? And is he expecting me to stay home, take care of the house and the kids? So you have to communicate about what each other's expectations are. And are those expectations realistic? There are a lot of women who in their in their early 20s and late 20s, they focus on their career. And then when they get into their 30s, now they're looking around for a husband and realize that there aren't a lot of men on their level because they've overeducated themselves and the other people around them may not be on that level. And so now they don't want to date down. So they price themselves out the market. A lot of times they say that if you're not married by the time you get out of college, the odds of you getting married are greatly reduced. Why? Why is college such a big thing? Because that's where all the people trying to get educated are found. You have a high concentration of people doing the same thing. And once you graduate, there's less people in your sphere that you can interact with on a regular basis. So if you don't get married as a woman before you get out of college, it's going to be hard, especially if you continue your education and you get to your summit and there aren't a lot of people out there. You know, and so next question that we have to look at is what are my boundaries? What are my non-negotiables? What are my partner's boundaries or potential partner's boundaries and non-negotiables? Non-negotiables are things that you just will not budge on.
Right.
Boundaries are how far can you take me before I get uncomfortable in this relationship? So those are things, you know, do you have well-defined boundaries? I don't think you should ever get into a relationship without having well-defined boundaries. And are my well-defined boundaries legitimate? Are they actually justified? Are they even something that is practical? They may not be practical boundaries, and so there's a communication thing that must be had about the boundaries. Are they alignable? That was question number 4. Question number 5. A lot of people don't look at the differences between us because two people in a relationship grow up in different households. They might grow up in different communities, might have different ethnicities or whatever. But even if you're the same race or the same culture, you grow up in different households. And so are your beliefs alignable? Are your cultures alignable? You can grow up in the same neighborhood and have different cultures.
Yeah.
You know, and so what are the traditions? Just look at males and females and stuff. My dad was a cook in the house. None of his brothers really do the cooking in their house. So even in the same family, there were brothers that had different expectations from women. You know, am I expected to work? Will my husband expect me to work? Will he expect me to stay home? These are traditions, beliefs, and desires that might have to be discussed because you don't want to get married and then realize, man, this man has some real old-fashioned ideals that I don't want to deal with. And women, your expectations from him need to also be voiced because if that's something that you can't work out before you get married, then one or both of y'all need to run to the hills. So I think that those are 5 starting questions that people can ask to help them navigate where they need to be in a relationship or even if they are ready for a relationship.
Absolutely. I mean, well defined. Well defined. It's almost like you had those written down.
Oh, wow. I wish I had them written down, but like I told you, I did not have them before you sprung them on me.
No, absolutely. No, definitely well defined questions that you should ask yourself. And really, to be honest with it, what it boils down to, Dr. Howell, is that it's almost like you're interviewing yourself. You're preparing to take this step, and it's like, it's a big step. And so you have to have answer those internal questions. And so as you answer those internal questions, and if one of the things says, one of the questions that you answer or ask yourself is, do I want to be loved? Right? Do I wanna, so out of that, my question to you is, why is it important to love yourself before you try to love someone else?
Well, the first thing is if you don't love yourself, you don't have boundaries. You don't have boundaries, you may open yourself up to be abused. That's the first thing. Secondly, you cannot love someone if you don't love yourself. And so when you love yourself, there are things that you would not do. When you love yourself, there are places you won't go. When you love yourself, there are boundaries that you will set on yourself to make sure that you're safe, and the people who also love you back are safe. If you don't love yourself, you will take risks that are unnecessary. You would engage in activities that aren't healthy, aren't sensible, and not, you know, in alignment with what you're trying to get out of life. And so I cannot tell someone what my boundaries are if I don't know what my boundaries are. And you do not know your boundaries if you don't love yourself. So, for example, if I love myself, I can say to my partner, hey, I don't appreciate when people X, Y, and Z. So those are non-negotiables for me in a relationship. If you don't love yourself, you will say, hey, I feel lucky to have this person and they can do whatever because I just want to be in a relationship, versus I deserve to have someone who treats me well, respects me, communicates well with me, loves and cherishes me, and adds value to me. When you don't love yourself, you'll stay in an abusive relationship and wonder why that person isn't treating you right instead of getting out of Dodge. And so you can open up yourself to a lot of hurt, pain, and you can open up your kids to a lot of hurt and pain, and then the cycle can continue. So not only do you hurt yourself, you hurt the next generation because you do not pick the right people. And you could even have the right person, but that right person goes past the boundaries and makes you feel unloved, uncared for, and allows you to not feel like the best person that you can be. And a lot of times you want to blame that person for that behavior, but it's because you didn't put boundaries on your relationship and on the things that you're willing and not willing to accept from someone else. Because even the best of people are selfish. And like I said, most relationships start off with a take, 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 take. But if you don't say, hey, at some point in time, I need for you to give to me, eventually you want to end up in a relationship where you feel like you're being abused and taken advantage of. And it's not necessarily because the person's a bad person. It's because they weren't cognizant of the fact that they were abusing you because you never put parameters on the relationship. And some people might say, well, that's foolish because a good person would know not to abuse it. Well, human nature is human nature. People will take as much as they can take until they get in trouble or until they get checked. Both males and females do that. And babies do that. Kids do that. And don't say kids don't love their parents, but kids will push their parents and see how much they can get from them before they get checked or get in trouble. It's just human nature.
Sometimes you be saying stuff, and I be sitting here on the edge, like I'm like, okay, no, yeah, no, yeah, you're absolutely right. Um, it amazes me that between the five questions, between loving yourself, there's this. It's always this talk, and you've expressed it many a times.
Mhm.
Around who makes me happy, what is true happiness, how do I find that happy place, like what should make me happy, that's the real question, because we're talking about self, right? And we're talking about loving yourself, and we're talking about the five questions to ask yourself, we're talking about all of these different things, but who or what should make a person happy and why?
Mhm. Well, first of all, no one can make you happy but you. And a lot of times people get into the relationship because they feel lousy being alone. They feel horrible being alone. So they just have to be in a relationship. And that's a horrible place to be because if you get into a relationship because of desperation, you set yourself up for abuse. Because now you're being dependent on someone else versus adding to someone and them adding to you. You're always on the receiving end and never on the giving end because you're not in that headspace. And so how do you get happiness? Let's address that real fast. True happiness comes from an amalgamation of a couple of factors. Knowing your purpose, living your purpose, and making sure that purpose is the God-designed purpose or God-ordained purpose. And Dr. Miles Monroe used to say it the best. He said, inside of every seed is the potential for a forest. Because every seed can create a tree. A tree can create more seeds, and those seeds create more trees, and eventually they create a forest. And I never heard it said like that before. And so we're looking at it from such a simple standpoint, but when you look at it from the standpoint of when you live your purpose, you're creating a forest. That is your legacy. What do you leave behind? What are the seeds that you leave behind that turns into multiple forests? And so your happiness comes from aligning what you love with your skills and God's purpose. And when you put that together, you get happiness. Now, the true cherry on top is when you find someone to share that with. A lot of times we get into relationships because we want that person to be our happiness, to bring us happiness, when in actuality they are there to share our happiness with us. I'm done.
Stop doing that. Stop. Stop. Stop doing it. But I get it, right? It's like cut and dry.
Yeah.
If you're looking for happiness, if you lost happiness, if your happiness was stolen, you are responsible for that. It's all about you. You make yourself happy because once, like pretty much once you depend on somebody else for your happiness, as soon as that person lets you down, it's like your whole world has crashed in front of
Yeah.
you. So yeah, definitely. Well, listen, we are ahead of schedule tonight, so we don't even have a cliffhanger question tonight because we made it to our last question. Our last question is this. This is our last question. The term baggage. Now we done heard this terminology before. We done heard it. We done seen it. The girl got so much baggage. The guy got so much baggage. Oh, they bringing all this baggage into this relationship. Oh, you got 10 bags. You got 20 bags, whatever. But how did that term baggage, because it seems so negative, how did that term baggage find itself to define what you are bringing into and out of a relationship?
Yeah. Let me tell you this, man. I've done a lot of traveling in my time. Now, when I was young, I used to travel with one suitcase, sometimes two suitcases, because you want to look fly. You want a shirt, pants, and you want shoes for every outfit. And you're going home for 3 weeks, and you want to show off to all your friends that you're doing well and this, that, and the other. Well, when I got married and I went home for the first time, back in the day, you were able to carry 2 suitcases and a hand luggage. And my wife was packing them suitcases like she wasn't coming back. And because I used to lift all the bags and I used to make sure, we used to get the carts and we used to make sure that everybody, had what they needed. And I put it on the cart and nobody really had to lift up anything. And you know how they have those little carts at the airport? And you pay like $1 and you, whatever, it was 50 cents back then, quarter or whatever, and you get the cart, you take it thus far, and then you got to leave it there and then drag it the rest of the way. Well, one trip we could not find the cart, and I had 2 bags and my wife had 2 bags. I had hand luggage, she had hand luggage, and the first time she had to carry her own bags, was when she readjusted how she packed. Because she realized how heavy it was. And for years, I was the one taking all the weight and making sure that everything was copacetic. But I could not take 4 bags plus the hand luggage. So she had to lift her bags and she had to drag them down the gates and she had to do all. So now I picked them up, but she had to drag them. Even if they had wheels, it was still heavy. And sometimes the wheels don't work right. And so they're wobbling and shaking. We trying to catch this plane. And I'm like, hurry up. And, you know, and she realized how much those bags really weighed and how cumbersome and how horrible it is. And so now, 30 years in, we're trying to, every time we go on a trip, guess what we're doing? We're trying to pack everything in the overhead suitcases. So we're streamlining everything so that we have smaller bags so that they're more manageable and maneuverable. So I said all that to say this. When you're saying that people have bags in relationships, we're talking about things that are inconvenient, things that weigh you down. We're talking about things that are difficult to move and to go around. And so baggage is a negative term that refers to all those negative things that you bring from past relationships. Now, here's what I want to say to the viewers. Leave the bags alone. Drop them. You need to live your life with minimum regret. Make good decisions. Learn from the past, but move forward. There's this term called mindfulness, living in the now. There's some people so busy in their cars of life looking backwards in the rearview mirror that they can't even see what's coming in front. They can't even see what's right there in front of them, and they can't even see down the street because that rearview mirror is the only thing that you're focusing on. And most life coaches will tell you, and most psychologists will tell you, you see what you focus on and you become what you focus on. So if you focus on the past, you get caught up in the past and you cannot move forward. And guess what? Today is called the present because it's a gift. But if you spend all your life looking back, you'll never be able to enjoy the gift of today, because today is when you can make the changes in your life for a different tomorrow. But if you're always looking backwards, you never get the present, so you never get to plan. So you never are prepared for the future, so you're always living in regret. So the baggage represents the past. The baggage represents the lessons you need to learn from and move forward. And anytime you get stuck in the past, we call that baggage. So if you have hurt and you have pain from past relationships, learn the lesson that you need to learn. Forgive yourself, forgive the person who hurts you, and move forward. Because as long as you're holding on to that pain, you're looking in the past. As long as you refuse to forgive, you're holding on to the past. And so baggage are the things that we refuse to let go of. Baggage are those things that we refuse to learn from and move forward. And because of the nature of baggage, they will always hold you back.
Listen, boy, you broke these things down today. I was, my brain, I was going in a different direction of baggage. I was thinking about Southwest, and you get one baggage, or two. I think they let you check two.
Southwest lets you get two, yeah.
You need two, but after two, they're gonna charge you. So unless you want to have these high fees, just consolidate. What do you need? What don't you need? What's going to help you? What's not going to help you? Is this going to be too much? I know I find myself when I take a trip, when we're getting ready to go on a trip, man, I had a bag pack. This is when we're driving. I had a bag pack. Everything's in the vehicle. I find myself going to get more stuff. got an extra pair of shoes. Like, man, I might need them shoes. Oh man, I better bring another jacket because it may rain. Oh, I might need another pair of pants. And none of this is inside the luggage. It's just in the vehicle. You know what I mean? So,
I feel
learn to consolidate.
Yeah.
Listen, wow, I don't even know what to say. I mean, we done, where you thought that these are going to be some impossible, life-altering questions. I mean, we made it through, and so as always, the question I have for our audience, the questions I have for you tonight, Dr. Howell, is: can you relate to this?
Yes,
I'm Jay
I can.
Strauss, and this is Dr. Siegfried Howell. We thank you for being on our show tonight, and we look forward to catching you next time.
Relate to this. With Jay Charles and Dr. Howell.